Good evening. My name is Tawana Williams, the president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Alpha Delta Omega chapter. I bring you greetings from our chapter and from our international president, Dr. Glenda Glover. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is dedicated to implementing programs of service that enhance the social, economic, and educational well-beings of our communities. Health concerns and wellness is one of our focusing targets, and we are so excited tonight to have this open discussion targeted to and for our community. This town hall meeting is a collaboration with the Metro Health Department. We wanted to bring a forum for us to hear from infectious disease experts and about the various vaccines available, how it affects our community, and dispels any rumors, myths, or apprehensions about getting the vaccine. We are all ready to have some sort of normalcy, and we hope that this discussion will provide you the information needed to make an informed decision of the vaccine. This town hall meeting is currently live on Zoom and on the MPHD Facebook page. Now we will have Jenean Davis, the first vice president and chairman of our International Program Committee, and she will introduce our dynamic panelists, followed by Ms. Joy Reed, member of our COVID task force, who will give additional information about asking questions and actively participating in this candid discussion. We'd like to welcome you this evening.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Ms. Williams. Again, my name is Jenean Davis, Vice President of Alpha Delta Omega Chapter, and I'd like to introduce our esteemed panelist of experts. First, we have Ms. Diana Buzby-Soto, who is a nurse practitioner specializing in family medicine. She is the clinical manager and one of the providers in the occupational health clinic at the Metro Nashville Health Department. She has been in healthcare for almost 30 years. Her background experiences include medical, surgical, behavioral health, hospice, and pain management. She understands some of the disparities that may arise due to differences in ethnicity, cultural diversity, socioeconomic status, and religious beliefs, being an immigrant herself. She is passionate about closing gaps in healthcare through education and accessible medical care for all. Our next panelist is Dr. Julie Gray. As a general dentist, business owner, and educator, Dr. Julie A. Gray has served patients, families, and communities by delivering healthcare in the Nashville community since 1999. She is currently an Associate Dean of Community-Based Education at Meharry Medical College, School of Dentistry, and has a dental practice in Berry Hill. Dr. Gray is a native of Houston, Texas, and was inspired to join the field of dentistry after attending a dental summer program. She earned her doctorate of dental surgery degree from Meharry Medical College School of Dentistry in 1999 and attended the general practice residency program at Meharry Medical College from 2000 to 2001. She is currently the Associate Dean of Community-Based Collaborations, where she is responsible for expanding the reach of the institution while developing sustainable, impactful programs. Since the onset of the pandemic in March of 2020, Dr. Gray has overseen the Meharry Medical College Community Assessment Sites, one of the first mass operational COVID community assessment plans established in the country. Our next presenter is Dr. Livette Johnson. Dr. Livette Johnson graduated from Meharry Medical College School of Medicine in 1988. She is an internal medicine and infectious disease specialist. She has more than 30 years of experience providing care for people infected with HIV, AIDS, and other infectious diseases. She sees patients at Meharry Community Wellness Center and the Nashville General Hospital. And our last panelist is Dr. Joanna Shaw-Kaikai. Dr. Joanna Shaw-Kaikai is a board-certified internal medicine and infectious disease specialist. Dr. Shaw-Kaikai is the Associate Medical Director of Communicable Disease Control at the Metro Public Health Department and Nashville-Davidson County. In this capacity, she responds to the outbreaks, precepts, the advanced practice nurse practitioners in the Sexual Health Center and Tuberculosis Elimination Clinics. She also provides medical and infectious disease expertise throughout the Metro Health Department and the county, and is the primary tuberculosis disease physician for the Nashville-Davidson County region. She received her infectious disease training at UT Southwestern in Dallas, Texas, and she is a member of the American College of Physicians Infectious Disease Society of America and the Tennessee Public Health Association. Again, thank you and welcome to our esteemed panelists.
Hi, I'm Joy Buckley-Reed, and I will be facilitating the chat room this evening for your questions. We're so excited to have you join us for this important conversations. Questions can be submitted through the chat in Zoom or by adding a comment on the Facebook video. So let's get started. Dr. Shaw Kai, where are we right now with COVID-19 vaccines?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Give you some stats about the COVID-19 vaccines. Our team, our partners have been working hard to make sure we're getting people vaccinated. And we know you've been working hard trying to get to the sites to get vaccinated. So when we look at those who are age 65 and older, we see that in Caucasians, at least 56% of those who are eligible to be vaccinated have had a vaccine. In Blacks, 47.8%, and these are those who have had at least one dose of the vaccine. In Asians, 41.6%. And in those who are of Hispanic ethnicity, should be more than 30%. And for those who have had 2 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine or have received 1 dose of the Johnson & Johnson of Caucasians, 34%, Blacks, 27%, Asians, 25%, and Hispanics, 32%. And these are those who are age 65 and older and have been fully vaccinated. When we look at all those who are eligible to be vaccinated here in Davidson County, when we look at whites, those who are eligible to be vaccinated and have received at least 1 dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, we see that at least 19% have been vaccinated, Blacks 11%, Asians 11.9%, and Hispanics 6.5%. So we have a little ways to go as far as getting our residents vaccinated. And we continue to expand those who are eligible for receiving a COVID-19 vaccine. And as we expand those who are eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine, that means there will be more people who can be vaccinated, and there need to be more of us trying to get those shots in arms. So we have quite a little ways to go, but we can get there. If you would like me to, I can speak a little bit as far as what we've seen so far related to the incidence of COVID-19 cases and also the deaths. These numbers, when I presented them presented them at the town hall a little less than a month ago, have remained about steady. In Blacks and African Americans, they account for about 19% of the COVID-19 cases in Davidson County, but however, account for 31% of those who die from COVID-related causes. Of Hispanics, they account for 12.1% of those who are experiencing death from COVID-19 related causes. And Asians, 3.2% of COVID-related deaths are occur in Asians. So we see that for Blacks and African Americans, that the COVID-related deaths are quite high compared to other people of color.
Dr. Johnson, as an infectious disease specialist, what is the role vaccinations play in ending the pandemic?
Vaccinations, I believe, are crucial. We can prevent infections by wearing masks and double masking, but that is something that we're going to, and we are experiencing fatigue. You see less and less people with masks on a day-to-day basis. At least I do when I go out. So the vaccine is not going to totally stop by itself the pandemic, but it will decrease those large number of deaths that Dr. Shaw just spoke about, and decrease the severity of infection. So you won't have to be hospitalized, and we won't be going to the funerals and seeing what we've seen in the last year. So if we start by that, what will happen is you will decrease what's called the community viral load, or the amount of virus in an area, so Davidson County. And when we do that, it is not spread as easily or as transmitted as easily, and everybody won't get sick. You won't see this. And eventually, hopefully, we'll be able to stop wearing masks.
Okay, we have a question from the chat. Do we know how long the vaccines will be effective, or is that still being determined?
Is that for me? We don't know. It's still being determined. The vaccines have just been available since December. So now we have 3 months experience. Even with natural immunization, meaning people who were infected, initially we thought it was 3 months that the antibodies were protected. Now we're talking about 6 months. So this is a work in progress. This is a disease we only started hearing about in 2019 in December. So we still have a long way to go and a lot to learn. But we have covered a tremendous amount of ground and made a lot of progress in this last year. So the CDC revised their recommendations, saying that based upon the available data now, is that there's 3 months that they think the vaccine will be fully protective. Now, the importance of these Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson trials are that they'll continue to measure and monitor the antibodies. So in another 6 months, they may say, oh, they're good for 6 months, and then 9 months and 12 months. But as far as we know, and as long as they've been out, it's only been 3 months, and they are still good for 3 months.
Dr. Gray, you're the Associate Dean of Community-Based Collaboration at Meharry Medical College. Can you talk about the role collaboration and community-based approaches can play in the goal of vaccinating the community?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I believe that it's essential and vital. When we first started in this COVID-19 pandemic, we didn't know that we were going to get a vaccine. And we at Meharry collaborated, of course, with OEM and the health department, and we began testing. And we continue testing today. and gaining trust in terms of collaboration is very important with the community. Continuing to test is very, very important. As we have transitioned and the availability of vaccines has become more prevalent, it's very important to reach out to organizations such as Alpha Kappa Alpha, such as other Greek organizations, faith-based organizations. We've got to reach out to entities in which our community trusts. And collaboration is essential for that to happen. Each and every day I meet different people in the community who could even be eligible for the vaccine, no matter how much the health department gets information out, gets it on TV, people aren't paying attention. So it's our responsibility to ensure to collaborate so that they understand to pick up that telephone. What is that telephone number? Maybe they don't have access to a computer. We help them to get registered. So collaboration is essential to make sure that we, this community gets to reach herd immunity, so we can get back to doing the things that we love to do and to get back to some sense of normalcy, our new normal, whatever that new normal looks like. I don't know exactly what that is right now, but we'd like to, after a year into this pandemic, we'd like to get into that. But collaboration is essential right now in terms of getting out the word and getting vaccinations.
Great, thank you. We have another question. This one's for Diana Buzby-Soto. What is the vaccine hesitancy or what is vaccine hesitancy and what can we do to decrease it?
Good evening. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm Diana. I'm so glad to be here to help present and to you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. So I've kind of been in this process probably from the beginning to even up till now, including vaccinating people. And what I have found most of the time is the issue is incorrect information or information that has come from sources that are not reliable. Sometimes people will Google things, they'll see commercials. And a lot of times when you come from social, smaller communities, they tend to talk amongst each other. And if one person has bad information, they just spread it to the next person, And then if somebody doesn't go and seek reliable information, that information continues to spread. And then if something, for example, I've had a lot of people say, I was so afraid to come because that needle I heard was huge. And I do not want to get a needle that huge. And then they get there and find out it's a standard needle. And most people will tell you, I didn't even feel the needle. It was so fast, it was great. And then that information, it gets, passed on to them, and then they spread the correct information. But then also the fear is once you get there, you're sitting down, you're going to have to take the vaccine. I promise you, we will sit and explain things to you. You can call ahead. Even when you're right there sitting down and you've got that, the vaccination right there, if you say, I have 10 more questions before I take this vaccine, I promise you, everybody will be happy to answer them till you're thoroughly, feel you've got the information you need and you're completely confident. We want you to feel like this is it's a wonderful experience, and you're going away feeling like you did something very successful for you, your family, and your community.
Great. We also have another question in the chat. Are there any race-related statistics about those who have presented with long-term COVID? Maybe that's Dr. Johnson, maybe could answer that question.
I don't know about the statistics. I have seen a few patients that have come back 3 to 4 months post having COVID, that they were in the hospital. They have presented again with one with heart problems, the other ones with blood clottings, and they still have a high degree of inflammation. But that is 4 or 5 patients, so I don't know the statistics. I'm reporting all of these people to the Center to Disease Control and Tennessee Department of Health, but I'm not aware of what the statistics are. And interesting, I haven't seen any, the ones that I have seen in the hospital that have had these long-term symptoms were before we had steroids and remdesivir. So when they got over COVID, but they didn't have treatment. So I don't know if it's decreasing now. I hope so, since I haven't seen it, but that's something to keep in mind. Did they have any of the available treatments when they were in the hospital that we had to give them? So that's a hopeful sign and part of the progress we're making with this disease.
Thank you. We're very chatty.
Yeah,
So
I just have to.
I've got another. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I was going to echo what Dr. Johnson said, that, you know, and these are so new that we're still gathering data. I have not seen either where there's one race or ethnicity more prone to long hauler syndrome, as they're calling it, compared to the other. But I'm sure as data is being gathered and as time goes on, we will know more.
Great. Okay, we have another question from the chat for either Dr. Shaw Kai or Dr. Johnson. What is the difference between each vaccine type? What is herd immunity and how do we achieve that? If you could tell us more about that.
Well, so we have 3 vaccines approved under emergency use by the FDA here in the US. You know, the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, Moderna, and the Johnson & Johnson or Janssen vaccine. And 2 of those vaccines are the mRNA vaccines. Both of them require 2 doses. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine or the Janssen vaccine requires 1 dose. They do not change your DNA. I know we get asked that a lot. The vaccines do not contain the actual virus in them. They contain what is going to cause your body to make proteins to make it think that is the vaccine. The thing is the virus, and build up those soldiers or those antibodies against the SARS-CoV-2 virus. That's the virus that causes COVID-19. We usually get asked which vaccine is better than the other. And there's been no head-to-head study of the 3 vaccines. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine was done at a different time and in different countries than the other 2. And the other 2 vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer, were done in different countries also. The good thing is that probably 90,000 or so people who the studies were done. And then we know there are millions who have received the Pfizer and the Moderna, that they are safe and tolerable. And they're highly effective at keeping people out of the hospital. And in all 3 of those studies, no one in the study arm that received the vaccine died of COVID-19 related diseases. So I don't take up all the time. I'll have Dr. Johnson talk about herd immunity.
I was just going to say one more thing about the difference between the 3. The Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines are probably more similar. They're just in different packaging, whereas the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is derived from cell lines. And I know there are questions. Some people are hesitant to take it because they have heard it's from fetal tissue. And it's the tissue line or the cell lines that it was derived from are from elective abortions in the 70s and 80s. And they have just continued to grow these cells in a lab. So that's how it's different, and the fact that you only have to have it once. The Catholic Church has approved using these vaccines, so I know some people are hesitant about the Johnson & Johnson because of that, but they weren't taken from ladies that had abortions for other reasons. They chose to have an abortion, and again, they haven't used any of these cell lines since 1985. Herd immunity is when you get a percentage of the community. I think it's probably about 85%. So what I was talking about earlier, that the virus does not continue to replicate, and then we can defeat the virus. So we need to have a greater uptake of people taking the vaccine, so this will happen. And also, the sooner we do it and the less of the virus that's floating around the community, we'll have a less chance for mutations. So these existing vaccines will work, and we don't have to keep updating them when the mutations occur.
Here's another question. Are we aware of any long-term side effects of the vaccine, or is it too soon to know this information?
I haven't heard of any long-term side effects. I'm probably in a group that got it initially, being a frontline worker, and I got mine before Christmas when they first came out. Everyone in my family that is eligible has been vaccinated, including my mother, who's 101 years old, and she has not had any side effects. She actually got hers because she was eligible, but also my brothers were waiting to see, oh, let's see how she does. And so now both of my brothers have been vaccinated. So it's pretty good. My nephew is next when they open it up to everyone. And he says he just wants the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because, and another reason people are waiting, those that are willing to take it, is because he works at a job. He's like, I can't take time off one day to stand in line and get a vaccine and then come back 3 or 4 weeks later. So for people that work in those type of industries or in a grocery store that really, they have to be there all the time and they can't take the time off, Johnson & Johnson is great. So I think we have all the vaccines that will help and fit for every person that wants it.
Thank you. Diana, you work as a nurse practitioner, so you're up close and personal and right with the folks as they're going through the vaccination process. What have you been hearing from people who come in for their vaccine, and what can people expect when they come in for their vaccine?
Well, a lot of things is like what I had mentioned before, that fear, that's kind of mixed. They'll come in and they're so excited because they're finally there, but then they're also hesitant because they've heard different things. The process is really easy. We've been doing it for a while now. You register online, and then you come at the date and time that you have the reservation. There's in every site we've gone to, there's a lot of people that are going to direct you. They'll have you fill out a form. It's like 10 questions, your name, and then questions asking, are you allergic to anything? Are you, have you had a bad reaction to vaccines before? And that doesn't mean that you're going to have a bad reaction to the vaccine that you're taking, the COVID vaccination. It's just your sensitivity level. Some people are just a little bit more hypersensitive to vaccinations than other. I'll tell you, a lot of people said their arm was sore. I said my arm felt horrible, but I was good. I was good after a few days. So everybody's reactions different. So they ask, am I going to get really sick? I always tell them, you know what, we'll answer the questions. Some people will have a milder reaction. Some might have a little stronger reaction. And so we go through those questions. There's almost literally 3 phases of asking and answering questions. So nothing's missed. And we have touched all the bases, all the questions. And then they'll come into the area. They'll be led to the area that the vaccination will happen. There's several nurses and doctors who line up and volunteer to help give the vaccine. They'll come to the table with that paper. They're given a COVID card. At the first COVID, if they do the Pfizer or the Moderna, the first one will be written out. This is a dose, and this is a day, and then you return for Pfizer in 3 weeks. And you'll bring that card back. That's your card. The COVID card is for you to keep. It's your information. And then they'll fill in the second one when they come back. So then at that time, we'll ask you the questions again. We'll repeat everything you said. Hope you understand, all of the information. We'll make sure it's the right name, date of birth, and then let them know, this is the vaccine you're getting. And at that time, we'll fill out the form that the data that's entered into the tennis or the vaccination record for the state. And then they take the card and I tell them, keep that card. It's like your medal. You just got this medal and it's for you to keep. I'll even tell people laminate it and keep it. It's like that way you can clean it. If somebody else wants to say, oh, look at you, this is great, you got a COVID vaccination, and then you spray that with some antibacterial if you want to. But then you'll come back at your, you don't have to make an appointment for the second one. You just come at the time you're told to come, about the same time. And then we'll go through that process again. You get the same paper, we'll re-ask the questions. And usually on the second one, I'll say, hey, how was your symptoms? How did you do? Are you concerned about anything? And I always ask them, did you tell anybody else to get them to sign up? And then they're good. They're really good. And then we fill out that COVID vaccination card for them for the second and final. I tell them, congratulations, you're done. And then that's about it. And they do have a recovery time. So if you have mild reaction and you've not really had any issues, you wait 15 minutes with medical staff watching you. If you've had more of a reaction or you have more severe allergies to vaccinations or even like bee stings, I'll ask them, then I'll make them wait 30 minutes, and we'll just watch you. And I tell people, hey, if you're driving and you feel a little dizzy or something, that doesn't feel right, stay. There's no time limit. We'll watch you, just stay. And if you're concerned, raise your hand, we'll talk to you again. So there's lots of gauges of safety and questions that are being answered at all times.
Now, to follow up on the symptoms that people are experiencing, I'm actually going to get my first vaccine tomorrow. So I've heard that my arm can be sore, I might have a fever. Is it safe for me to take Tylenol ahead of time, or should I just wait and see if I experience those symptoms?
It's totally up to you. If your primary says you can take Aleve, Tylenol, Motrin, take it. Some people do predict soreness and they stay ahead of the pain by taking medicine before. Some people just want to wait and gauge it, and be tough and be like, you know what, let me just see how I do. That's okay too. But make sure you take all your medications. Some people have come and said, hey, I held off on taking my blood pressure medicine until I got my COVID. Well, if your COVID vaccination is at noon and your blood pressure medicine's in the morning, then you're risking other issues. So your side effect, your dizziness might be because you didn't take your blood pressure medicine and not that you're getting the COVID vaccination. So I always tell people, make sure you take all your medications, and then if you want to take the medicine before, that's fine. Usually the second time they're like, I'm going to take the medicine before because it was sore. That's fine. Usually the first time they're not, sure if they're going to hurt or not. And then they take the Tylenol. I always tell people, make sure you drink lots of water. A well-hydrated muscle tends to be less sore. And then move that muscle, use that arm and keep it active so it has a chance to, not be sore. Sometimes I even tell people, if you want to put a little cool compress, if it has a little bit of a sting, do that. Then, whatever works for you. Everybody's remedy for discomfort or pain is a little different. It's whatever works for you.
Thank you. Earlier you had talked, go ahead. Thank you.
Oh, I was just going to add part of going into your question. The reason why they talked about, I think that you were asking, is because it is a theory that if you decrease inflammation before, then your response to the vaccine will be decreased. So that's why they say Tylenol is perfectly fine, but Motrin, Advil, things that have non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs in them we should probably hold off and not take them before or right after. The muscle tenderness, we will get over, but use Tylenol. That is not an anti-inflammatory. The other thing about the vaccine, we get 2 cards, and people were asking about symptoms. The CDC has a program, V-Safe or Vaccine Safe, and they will send you on your smartphone or to your email a vaccine checker. What side effects are you having? They'll do it probably for the first week and then weekly for 4 weeks afterwards. So that's another way for us to gather information about vaccine side effects.
Okay. And Dr. Johnson, earlier, I think you were talking about the mutations. Any ideas on what causes the mutations that we're starting to?
I think any unchecked, untreated virus out in the community, viruses mutate, unfortunately. And how serious they are, we know some of them, the UK virus and the South African, that they increase transmissibility, so it makes it easier to spread from person to person. That's why it's important to get herd immunity. But we don't know if any of these mutations yet will increase severity and make our drugs not work that we currently have. So again, important for everyone to get vaccinated, everyone that can get vaccinated.
Okay, here's a question for Dr. Gray. What's being done to help increase the level of trust of people of color who are reluctant to get the vaccine?
Education is absolutely key. And I also believe that as more people of color get vaccinated, that increases the level of trust. As you see people who you believe in and trust, your community leaders, your faith-based leaders, people who you know getting vaccinated, you quite naturally are going to honestly believe if there's some misconception or some preconceived notion that you have against getting vaccinated, it will help you to alleviate those fears. So it's education and trust. That is where we were in the beginning of the pandemic with testing. People didn't want to get tested, and as they saw their community leaders, their faith-based leaders getting tested, it's no different with vaccination. So you've got to get the word out and educate and educate and educate and educate. I also think that having a forum like this is essential. You've got to let people know the truth and not I don't want to say sugarcoat it, but be very honest with the public. That you may have symptoms. You may have just small cold-like, flu-like symptoms after being vaccinated. I didn't have any symptoms the first time I was vaccinated. I a lot like many of my colleagues on this panel, probably amongst the first to be vaccinated. I can remember exactly the day I was vaccinated. It was December the 23rd. And I had just a very small reaction. I would, on a 0 to 10, my arm was probably a 1, and I had no other symptoms. And I told everybody that would listen, that I was fine. The second round, I did have a few symptoms, but the benefit far outweighs the risk. And as soon as those symptoms came is as soon as they left. And having the social responsibility of knowing, that I'm protected and I'm protecting the public far outweighs, having COVID or, making someone else be susceptible. So I think it's education and having someone you trust and getting the word out.
Okay, thank you.
And I would like to echo what Dr. Gray said, and also Dr. Johnson and Diana, in that, you will have side effects. And from all the millions that have gotten the COVID-19 vaccine so far and have been entered into V-Safe, I believe Dr. Johnson was the one that mentioned that. I myself registered for V-Safe. That's where they document what the symptoms are. And the most common symptoms were things like, headaches, but those headaches didn't debilitate anyone. Myself, I had a sore arm for, I think, about 48 hours. I said, like when you get a tetanus vaccine, that's the feeling I had. I didn't hinder my activities. The second dose, honestly, I try to do an experiment on myself and not take any analgesic like Tylenol or ibuprofen after my vaccine, and I started to get some discomfort. And it lasted a few days, but I was able to go to work and take care of the family without any difficulties. And as Dr. Gray said, you never know who's going to be the person to have a severe case of COVID-19 disease. You might be that healthy person you think you are, and unfortunately have a severe case of it. So we know what to expect from the vaccine, but we don't know what to expect from COVID-19. And not only are you protecting yourself, but as my colleagues have said, protecting the ones you love and the community.
So we've got a couple of questions about breastfeeding, mothers that are breastfeeding, and then also if someone's pregnant. What can you tell us about the vaccine for these folks that fall into either of these categories?
Well, we know that the CDC had said that those who are breastfeeding and those who are pregnant may and should take the vaccine. And again, from data that they have during the clinical studies, for all three vaccines, women who were who became pregnant during the study period, they followed these women, and there were no increased complications among the women who were pregnant. There were no babies born with anomalies that were attributed to the vaccine. And so far, those babies that have been, and women who have been breastfeeding, even though there are no formal studies, that's found to be safe as far as we know for now for the children. So please do get vaccinated.
Okay. What happens if someone doesn't get their second dose? Do they have to start over?
Oh, I guess I can take that. No, they do not have to start over. And there's some data that suggests that it hasn't been peer reviewed, so it hasn't gone through the rigorous review, but that it's probably a little better to wait a little longer. I know some are saying like 6 weeks to get the vaccine as opposed to going and getting it too early. We know that the pharmaceutical companies and the CDC have given us guidelines to abide by. But if that person waits a long time to get that second dose, whether it's the Pfizer or the Moderna, just go ahead and get that dose as soon as you can. And there's no need to repeat the 2-dose series. Now, if you get the Johnson & Johnson, you get that 1 dose and that's it.
So
Go ahead. Thank you.
the data that we do know is that it's projected, I'm not sure about Johnson & Johnson. Well, we do have that, but as far as the Pfizer and Moderna, you're protected about 57% after the first vaccine. So 57%, but so you should get the second dose if you forget it or don't get it at 3 or 4 weeks, try and get it, as Dr. Shaw said, at 6 weeks or before, as soon as you can remember, and schedule the second dose. So you're not fully protected. And the same is true with hepatitis vaccines, that we need 3 doses before we're over 90% protected. So it's that same principle.
Okay, what about this? Once I get the vaccine, does that mean I can no longer spread the virus?
No, if you contract the virus, you're less likely to be symptomatic, less likely to be, definitely not to be hospitalized, not to die from it. You can have a low level of viremia in your nose and spread it to other people. But the amount that you have is going to be very low. And if you are what we call an asymptomatic spreader and you give it to someone else, they're also less likely to have symptoms from getting it from you. And not likely because the amount of virus that they're contracting from you is not that high. So they probably will have mild to no illness also.
So with all of us getting vaccines now, are we going to need a booster in the future? Do we have enough information on that yet?
Dr. Shaw is quiet. I don't think we.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to do all the talking. I see Dr. Gray's mic was unmuted.
I was just gonna,
Oh.
I'll let you take that. The only thing I was gonna piggyback on and say, that's why it's so critical for everyone to continue and being vigilant about wearing their masks and social distancing, because if you are carrying the virus, you don't want to spread it. And that's all I was gonna say based on what Dr. Johnson just said, but you can take that question, Dr. Shaw.
Oh, can I piggyback one thing and then let Dr. Shaw, just like you said, we've seen it this year, everybody wearing masks. I haven't seen anyone in the hospital or sick with influenza. So yes, these masks work. You're not going to spread viruses. And we've seen it this year, it's proven. But so it's important until we get herd immunity and don't see the virus to still wear masks.
Okay, here's a question for Ms. Soto. Is it true that whites are given a different COVID-19 vaccine or dose than people of color?
I will tell you that's 100% no. It's very unethical to do that. But even if you're concerned about, well, how is everybody's ethics the same? There's so many people doing it and their hands are involved in it that there's accountability in every step. It's not just one person pulling the vaccine, one person dispensing it, it's hundreds, and thousands all over the world. So there's a lot of accountability and everybody gets the vaccine that they signed up for. And they're signing off to that. That's what they're getting. So it's accountability, not only for the person dispensing it, but person who's getting it. So it's always, you're going to get exactly what everybody else is getting.
All right, here's a question. Let's see.
Diana and I, we have been on several vaccine events together. We can tell you that those who are drawing up the vaccines, they sit right there and, they're drawing it up and they're not looking to see, oh, you have this for this race or this ethnicity. Everyone comes in and you see our trays and we take the next one and administer it. And so definitely we are all getting the same vaccine. And in the studies, the efficacy of the vaccines were the same across race and across ethnicity. So we can take comfort in that. Going back to, I believe the question you had asked, Ms. Reed, about will we need a booster, I believe is what you had asked. And we know that the scientists are looking into that now. It's possible that for some of the vaccines like the Pfizer, the Moderna, we probably will need a booster maybe later on this year. And that will be to cover variants. But we do know that from some of the preliminary data that the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine should cover have some effect against the variants that are here. And I believe some of my colleagues mentioned earlier that the only way to stop the variants from forming is for us to stop the virus from spreading and be able to replicate. And that's by us, getting vaccinated and practicing wearing the mask and all the other safety measures that the experts have recommended.
Okay, here's another question. If you have contracted COVID-19 after getting the first dose of the vaccine, how long should you wait to get your second dose?
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably have to phone a friend at the state or the CDC because we know that when a person contracts the COVID-19 disease, that immunity is supposed to last for about 90 days. And we definitely don't want someone getting the vaccine while that person is feeling ill, even if it's, it's your 3 weeks or your 4 weeks when you're due. So you will have some protection. And I can tell you that our colleagues at the state of Tennessee and CDC are collecting data on those who have, you can say, breakthrough vaccine disease. And with the 1 dose, I believe it was Dr. Johnson or Dr. Gray that had said, for those that have the 2-dose series, and you've only gotten that 1 dose, you're only partially protected. Because that's a long way of saying you will be a case that will be discussed. But for now, you have time to get that 2nd dose when you're feeling better.
What about, is it okay to mix and match the vaccines? For example, if tomorrow I'm supposed to get the Pfizer and for whatever reason, I can't make my 2nd follow-up and I end up going to a place to get the Moderna, is it okay to do that? Is it safe?
Okay, I'll take it. Right now, the CDC recommends that you do not mix vaccines just because we don't have the data on it. If you got the Pfizer vaccine, go ahead and get the Pfizer vaccine. One of the things, the only situation right now that they're saying that a person who gets a Pfizer or Moderna vaccine could get a different vaccine would be someone who might have had a severe allergic reaction to the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine. And then you want them to complete that series, and then you could give them the Johnson & Johnson, but that's with close monitoring. And that's a person, I'll tell you that having worked with Ms. Buzby-Soto all these years, she'll probably keep you there for 2 hours. And we probably be doing it at Meharry. Because we want to make sure that we want you protected, but make sure that you're okay. That's the only situation right now that it's recommended you receive 1. The 1st dose is different, and then you can receive a 2nd dose, which would be the Johnson & Johnson, because we know 1 dose of the Johnson & Johnson is a complete vaccination.
Well, let's see, we have a couple more questions in the chat. Based on the current number of citizens here in Nashville that have received their vaccine, are we on track to obtain herd immunity soon? And if so, when is that likely to occur? Are you on mute?
I'm sorry, I guess I was talking with my mic off. So I believe we're now at about 20% of those who should be vaccinated. So we have quite a ways to go. I know everybody's wary, but please continue to abide by those other measures. We appreciate Mayor Cooper in that he has given us the charge of trying to get, I believe, 50% of people vaccinated by May 1st. My colleagues at the health department and our partners in the community are gearing up. It also will depend on the vaccine supply that comes in. From day to day, that can change. We have a ways to go to get to herd immunity, but we can. And herd immunity will also includes those who have had active infection. But with that, we know that immunity can wane also over time. We know at least is there for 90 days. That's a long way of saying, let's continue on the course and get vaccinated and continue to, adhere to those measures to mitigate the spread of COVID-19.
So great. Thank you so much. We've had such a great discussion. Why don't we give each of the panelists a few minutes to wrap up with any last thoughts. Let's start with Dr. Johnson, please.
Okay, thank you. I want everyone out there listening to know, not be afraid to get the vaccine. As I've had my closest family and my dear mother do it, I have called her friends that are in their 90s and gotten online and said, hey, you want to come with us? You want me to pick you up? I'll arrange for you to get a vaccine. I've done it when I see my patients so they feel more comfortable and tell them about my experience and how it's not that bad, and everybody that works in our office that has gotten the vaccine. I'll get online like, hey, let's get a vaccine. Part of it is fear. Part of it is everybody doesn't know how to get online, and calling someone and waiting for them to call you back has taken a long time. So now that they're available, if we can all help everybody else, help one or two other people register, drive them there to get the vaccine, that will put us on our way to getting herd immunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Gray?
Thank you for that question, Joy. I would say to everybody that's listening out there, my family's been vaccinated as well, but I don't really stop with just my family, because I know that I have a social responsibility to the patients that I serve, to the community that I serve, and every time that I get information that there are potential vaccination slots that are open, I disseminate it to as many people, as many organizations that will listen, because I know it's my responsibility to make sure that, people of color hear from someone they trust to get vaccinated. So we need to stand the course, and we need to continue doing that. We need to encourage people that we know are community leaders, people that are faith-based leaders, to be a part of the solution and not the problem. And that is to partner with us to get the rest of this public vaccinated that's not been vaccinated, because it's about to be everybody's turn. And if Mayor Cooper wants 50% and we're here at what, 20%, I think we've got a little bit to go, but we're all going to have to do our part to get back to a sense of our new normal. And so what my charge is to everybody is we all pull someone else along and educate, and make sure to strengthen and gain that trust in our community, because we need it. It's our social responsibility and our obligation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gray. Ms. Soto.
What I want to say is that, I don't think sometimes people are afraid when they go in, they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm the type of person who should get the vaccine. I'm going to tell you, it doesn't matter what you wear. It doesn't matter what you come in and how you got there. I am honored you're there, and I'm going to treat everybody the same. And I can honestly tell you, for all the colleagues and all the staff that work there, it's the same thing. We're there to fight the disease, not your fashion sense. We're there to help you understand that you matter to us. And if you walk out of there and you don't feel that, you come find me or any of these people on the panel, and they will make sure you feel that. I want you to go away feeling that this is worth for you to come and do it, and then spread that information to other people. You are going to all be treated the same because you all matter. And that's my input.
Thank you so much. And then we'll hear from Dr. Shaw, and then we'll finish it up with closing words from Ms. Williams. Dr. Shaw?
All right, thank you. My colleagues have said it so well. It's important that we all do our part, and that includes education, that includes behaving responsibly responsibly, avoiding those big, huge parties we're seeing on TV. And that includes getting vaccinated and helping each other. One of the things we want to do at the health department is to make sure we have everybody have access to the vaccine, especially when for those who are eligible. And as you know, we continue to open up the eligibility phases, excuse me. And so we want to definitely decrease any type of barrier to accessing the vaccine, whether it's misinformation or transportation. Whatever your concern is, give us a call. And we know we have community partners. We appreciate Meharry and our FQACs, and you get into trouble when you start naming partners because we have so many, but the sororities and fraternities, I see them at the vaccine events bringing people to get vaccinated. So we appreciate you all. I mean, it's going to take all of us for us to stop COVID-19 spread and be able to get out and enjoy each other again. One thing I'll say is also that there's research going on in the community on COVID-19 vaccines in children. If you look on safenashville.org, you can find information. It's important that people of color are represented in the vaccine research studies. I believe Ms. Reed had asked a question from that had come in about vaccine efficacy across the races. So it's important that we all play our part and just continue to not get weary and stay strong and get vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was a very, very informative panelist discussion. I would like to thank our panelists for sharing your wealth of knowledge this evening. We would also like to acknowledge Dr. Joanna Shaw-Kaikai, Matthew Peters, and Tanya Foreman from the Nashville Metropolitan Health Department. We'd also like to thank the Alpha Delta Omega Health Committee and the COVID-19 Task Force for your efforts in bringing this town hall meeting to educate our community of color. This video will remain on the Metro Public Department Facebook page, and it will also appear on the Alpha Delta Omega Chapter Facebook page, as well as our YouTube channel, if there's a need for you to go back and hear something again. Please look for future educational opportunities like this by the MPHD by following their social media accounts. And we want to thank you for coming out this evening.